Wow. I feel as if this is the foodie event of the year. We've got the superstars at the food bar. I don't think you didn't realize that, Sammy, right?
No, not really.
But you are, and well deserved. Well, I think what we're going to do is have a lot of fun tonight. I hope so. We'll have a conversation for about 40 minutes, and then you'll have 20 minutes questions, okay? Well, first of all, I just want you to know that I came back from Israel early so that I could do this. When they asked me in July, Mark called me, and I just decided I had to do this. So I'm here. And when I was walking around in Jerusalem last week, I kept thinking about you, thinking about actually where we would go for dinner. That was the big thing.
We're still thinking.
But I thought about you, and I asked myself, you know, what was it like for both of you living in Jerusalem? There are all these bushels and bushels of wonderful fruits and vegetables. When I went to the Damascus Gate, I saw them, not as many as I used to see, along the gate as you're walking in. But I guess my first question is, what was it like for both of you growing up in Jerusalem? You want to start, Sam?
Yeah. I mean, you described it perfectly earlier. I said it's a different time. Unfortunately, with all the problems that the country and the city is under, it kind of lost some of its charm, but the charm is still there. And you can feel it from going to the markets, to the old souk, and talking to people around. I haven't been for a while back to Jerusalem, but from what I hear, that the whole place changed. I mean, that a new wall that was created, a new road, both the old city and the new part of the city changed quite a lot. Growing back then in the 70s, 80s, it was a kind of a wonderful place. I always kind of try to picture it as a national place. I grew up in the old city, surrounded by many religions. For some reason, now that I think back, people actually did live in peace. But this is done my way of living. I have the various memories that we had. Sam and I have been reminiscing on how things used to be and what it was like growing up. And I grew up in the western side of the city, obviously, in a kind of a very different environment from the old city. But Sammy and I were both born in 1968, 1 year after the Six-Day War. And we were talking about it earlier, how different Jerusalem was in the 70s. I mean, the whole idea is not to sort of discuss, say how wonderful it used to be as opposed to now, but there was kind of a naivety about it. And I remember when people didn't know what we're getting ourselves into at that stage. There was no plan, nobody knew where it's going. So, and John used to live in Jerusalem at the same time. I've read your books, and your book about Jerusalem. There was a sense that there was a lot of people getting together and over many things, but a lot of people getting together, and they don't know where they're going. Arabs and Jews of various parts of the world, and Armenians and Christians and all sorts of people. And I remember that we used to go to the old city. My dad used to take us, and for my parents it was a new experience to be able to go spend time in the old city. And we used to sit and eat all the wonderful things that were. It was very exhausting. It was kind of weird and wonderful at the same time. There used to be a bakery where you used to go down into the basement. This fat guy was called Hassan, and he had a cat. And I remember being really kind of slightly terrified of the cat, but the bread was so wonderful and alluring that I forgot the cat. and we used to go to Jericho quite a lot, which was a wonderful trip along the Judean hills, and arrived there, and it was like tropical. Jerusalem has a kind of, it get quite cold, but and all of a sudden there's oranges and all these wonderful things growing. So the whole environment was a very evocative environment growing up, and I think anyone who's grown up in Jerusalem in the 70s and 80s has had this kind of very strong emotional reaction to the city that has just literally been kind of brought together and made it kind of work. But yeah, like I said, nobody knew where it's going, what's going to happen. And it was something quite nice about that.
And it was a time, actually, I arrived there 2 years after they were born, so it shows how old I am. But anyway, it was a time when people would only eat at cafes, and hummus joints, falafel joints, and they still do, but, and they have cafes for dessert. Only the tourists would go to restaurants.
Yeah, there were no restaurants as such.
There were no restaurants.
There were a couple of kind of really expensive, terrible restaurants, and then all the restaurants were happening on the streets. And the wonderful thing, and I still remember, is that we all hanker for street food, but there was just street food. There was nothing else. Eating on the street was kind of a normal and wonderful thing. You could just walk there and eat something. And it's not very civilized, but it's just a fantastic way to do things. We both had these experiences of growing up and just eating as you walk. It's the most wonderful thing.
It was a good time. It was a time of hope. It was great. I mean, it was, I just remember going to East Jerusalem, going to Ramallah, not thinking that I'd be afraid of anything, going to the West Bank to get figs or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, but you were 10 years later, 20 years later, you were young, you were gay, you needed freedom to become who you were, so you went away. But then you came back to see Jerusalem. What was it like coming back for each of you? Who wants to start?
I left. Something I have a very kind of uncanny parallel stories, and they're very similar, as we both left at the same time. And leaving Jerusalem is the most incredible place in so many ways. It's the most difficult place to grow up, because there's quite a lot of tension from all sides. Religion and politics and history, and everything kind of weighs heavily on your shoulders, and there's just
expectations.
And there's very little normality. Everything is very special. Everything is being kind of sanctified by history, and it's hard to avoid it. So the first thing any young person wants to do is just leave. And that's what we all do. And normally leave never to look back, in theory. Of course, this doesn't happen because we all look back at some point. Normally when you kind of turn the lake. This is what happened to us. So I think that I haven't visited Jerusalem much since then. I mean, my parents live outside Jerusalem, so very rarely would I go and spend time with them. And for us to do the book, to revisit the book, was started off as a torture and ended up being one of the most magnificent things we could have ever done. Because I remember, I sat sitting. It was one of our business partners. I said, it would be a great thing if you go back and write a book about where it all started, because people would be interested to know how it evolved, your food. And we said, the first reaction was, no way, why would you go back? Yeah, it's never going to happen. And but the nice thing, the beautiful thing was that as soon as we sat down, I remember the day we sat in Sunny's kitchen and started writing down recipes. You remember this place, you remember that place, and then I read your book, in Hebrew, the old version that someone managed to find. And it all started sort of, coming back, and we had the most wonderful afternoon just bringing up memories of that little falafel joint, the Yemenite restaurant that you used to work here, the little alley from Shamsian Street, and all these things that we were experiencing it. I think that when we became sentimental, we just had to do it. There was no way
So did you go together to Jerusalem?
No, Sally did go.
Right.
I went a few times. Yeah. We went maybe with our memories, with talking to people and the books. One of them was yours.
Very honest.
I mean, we always knew that we have a lot in common, but then when we started researching for Jerusalem, we found out that we have more in common. All these kind of adultness and childhood memories that we have that we basically share, but we never talk about. Like when you talk about the shop or restaurant or this alley or where you do this, it was kind of fascinating.
And that's the one thing that I would always remember is when I was telling Sammy the story about how it's in the book, so if people read it, I'll repeat it. But this was like the idea of a child coming back to school and getting this big falafel thing on the way, knowing that they're doing something really naughty because they're going to get home and not be hungry anymore, and be covered with zucchini and all that. And so you really like expecting the worst when you get home from your mother. We had the exact same experience, and it was really wonderful because when I told the story, it was the same. And people think, but the worlds are so far apart. We don't engage with each other that much. And we definitely don't think we have the same lifestyle. But they're two little kids, going back to school, feeling these, getting this falafel, and coming back onto this, telling all of us. Yeah.
So I guess our next question relates to this. Do you think if you had lived in Jerusalem all your life, you could have written this book on Jerusalem?
I don't think so. I mean, sadly, the way things at the moment, we probably never even met
Or worked together.
And if we did, we'd have quite a lot of pressure on us because of this connection, which is, it's an unusual connection. For both sides, really, why would you do that? I mean, it's not normal.
Because it always seems to me that very often you can be creative when you leave your home, no matter what it is, and go to a different place and you can see the ingredients, those wonderful ingredients like sumac, and you can transpose them.
Yeah, I mean, there's again the two sides of the story. I mean, I grew up with all these ingredients, and I kind of they lived with me, and for Yotam was a later kind of introduction to these things.
But I think also what happened for us is that when we left Jerusalem, it was kind of the beginning of the culinary revolution in Israel. Because what we were talking about not having restaurants to eat, it was like as sure as many people in the crowd that have been to Israel only 15 or 20 years ago, it was a disaster. There was nowhere to eat. The restaurants were really bad. You could always get it with hummus on the street, but it was nothing more than that. It was really bad. And
Except in homes.
except in homes,
And now it's probably bad in homes and better on the street.
So yeah, probably for a long time we had a bad Chinese and a bad Indian, and this is very exotic for them, their usual places to eat.
And then something happened, and the things started happening, and most of it has happened after we left. So it started before, but most of it has happened in the last years while we were away. And it's really interesting for us to look back at Jerusalem and can resurrect some childhood recipes, but also try to understand what's going on now. And so we were accused many times of, I said it last night, of being fraudsters, not real, proper representatives of Middle Eastern food or Palestinian food or Jewish food, whoever is going after around. But in actual fact, we never said that we are. We only said that in Jerusalem it's our kind of weird, but it's a kind of private policy. We're going to tell our stories, evoke some memories, use some ingredients. We'll see what happens. And in that respect, it's a very private book. It was never trying to cover all grounds. we wouldn't be able to do that was not what we wanted.
Well, I sure love the cookbook, so that was pretty terrific. But I've never been to your restaurant. So could you, Sam, talk about what it's like being in the kitchen? And could you describe sort of the atmosphere of being in the restaurant?
I think the kitchen it's a less common restaurant kitchen because the places we have are quite small and the kitchen are also small. It's almost like a family thing. You know, people have to get on with each other. If you don't, because it's such a small space, it doesn't work. Very creative people, and you have to have that passion.
How do you create the recipes? You take
Recipes is a little bit different than working in a kitchen. I mean, the recipes we always say we always have these combinations of flavors that we know that work together, and we like for example, fried onion and cauliflower and saffron.
one of the great recipes in the book.
And saffron, and then we kind of elaborate and play around these flavors, taking some away, adding things. We do quite a lot of sweet and sour and spicy.
I think what we tend to have a limited repertoire that we always try to expand. Like that kind of expanding going back and expanding and going back. Yeah. The flavors, there's specific ingredients that are very, feel very at home with, but then all of a sudden we have this sometimes we think, okay, we can import something a little bit different. But one of the things that I love the dynamic of how we work together is also something that we work on. Because we go back, almost 15 years of knowing each other and working together. It's something that Sam and I have kind of evolved our relationship and our friendship over time, also the way we collaborate. So then initially when we started, Sammy was in charge of food and I was in charge of pastries and the sweet side. And then over the years, we had a very extensive and sometimes even stressful exchange in the kitchen. And we both started, dabbling in each other's territory. And even now, like for instance, if Sammy works more with the teams in the kitchen than us, I work in a test kitchen where I try recipes and write them down. We try to always kind of meet at least once a week and discuss recipes, discuss ideas. And this is where we become very creative, or where we have to do it both. But the recipes don't come from one place. They always they're in the air.
Well, I just love the recipes. And let's get to the new book, which was the first book, but it's the third book to be published in the United States. When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, I'm not going to like this book. Everything else is so great. But I love the book. And I immediately made that broccoli. Got to make the broccoli. It's fabulous. You grill it. It's the essence of broccoli. I thought to myself, even George Bush would like that broccoli.
Do you think so? Should we get him and ask him?
It's the only thing you can do with broccoli. I've been cooking for the last 30 years, and nothing comes even near it.
But as you know, the first recipe that I made from the book was your moussaka. And I think that it really shows what you do. You can explain, moussaka is my favorite chicken dish in the whole wide world. And actually,
because it's best.
It's got sumac and pine nuts and sauteed onions, red onions are best.
Yeah.
Anyway, else explain it to you.
Butter and lemon.
But I have to tell you, this really is dropping my name, but when I had to make a Shabbat dinner for Alice Waters because we always do these fundraisers every year. So I thought, what's the best dish that I could give her? So I made moussaka for Shabbat dinner. So that she loved it. She loved it. Because you can pull the chicken apart with your hands. And anyway, but theirs was different because it wasn't totally traditional. And that's what's so really beautiful about your books. So you want to just...
Sammy had an incident with a fervent cook who was not happy with his art and the fact that he played with the traditional recipe.
Yeah, I mean, we do some interesting, we can't learn a lesson and we keep, if it's a traditional recipe and it works, we just kind of do our take on it and then leave it alone. And in this case with the Mustafan, I had this lady raving about Jerusalem and she wanted to buy Ottolenghi the Cookbook as well. And she said to me, why didn't you do Mustafan in Jerusalem? It's one of the national dishes. And I said, but you know, we did something Mustafan without the pita in the Ottolenghi. And she looked at it, huh? I can't believe it. It's like, it's one of these recipes that you can't touch. I can't believe it. I'm so upset now. It's just cooking. I was kind of trying to say it's just cooking, and you know, it's a recipe that it doesn't work for us in the shop with the bread. And she went on and on and on, and she was really upset. And okay.
But this is in a way a very difficult story because when this happens all the time. There's a lot of very happy customers, but there's quite a few annoying people because we do have this tendency to change and play and we never, like I said before, we never claim to represent something or one thing that's that's real and authentic. It's kind of our version on the reality of the truth, and take it or leave it. But I do think that we do find good reasons to play with recipes, and that's one of the best ones is about turnip story, which is Sammy's mother used to make a really delicious dish of stuffed turnips, and it's very traditional, and we just had to have it in Jerusalem. You know how big the stuffed section is in Jerusalem, it's a whole big thing, and the stuffed turnips would be the highlight. And Sammy was one morning trying to make it, and he called me with kind of anger and really frustration on the phone, like, what happened? Let it hollow these turnips. They just break every time I start hollowing the turnip. As soon as it's almost thin, the thing breaks on itself, and it's just like, it's impossible. And so the turnips have become the bane of our lives. We didn't know what we were going to do. So we were kind of racking our brains for a while about what to do with turnips. And then we decided that we were just going to do the same thing, but just do it like in layers. So we'll have the layer of meat and rice, the layer of sliced turnip, and then it's got tamarind and tomato sauce and lots of other things, and then it's just cooked into a cake. And we really kind of thought, I said to me, we really earned the right to alter this recipe because we tried so hard to get it right and it didn't work. And we were just wondering how all these Palestinian women used to follow their turnips.
I would rather say they have a lot of time. And it's a working group. I mean, it's amazing. This really simple thing. I mean, it seems simple. Every time I try to core it, it just exploded.
I think that goes for, I have another question because I can't believe the time is almost over. Right? No, 10 minutes, right? I know you use turnips and lots of eggplants. And you're now venturing into Asian ingredients. What ingredients do you find to be the most or least versatile? And also, have you toyed with Latin American foods?
Latin American, so there's a place to go exploring. The most versatile, I think, is all the stuff that we do with sesame. You know, the tahinis and the halvas, and I think the world is yet, or the Western world is yet to discover. I mean, they have started almost as one of the most popular spreads in the world, I guess, or maybe the most popular spread. But there is.
It came right from the Middle East.
It came right from the Middle East, but I think there is just so much of these ingredients come from sesame, and various sesame oils and sweets that come with it. But I think there's versatility is kind of the name of the game there. It does everything. It's like, it's much better than peanut butter. You know, a bit of tahini on bread with a bit of date syrup.
Date syrup.
It's the best thing you can have. But literally, you've all got to go home and try and follow some turns. But that's the one thing. The least versatile.
Turnips.
And what was it like when you were working to document food for the home cook? Because it's different from restaurants.
We always have in mind the home cooks. We didn't want to do a chefy kind of cookbooks that, that has to look at, but you can't really do that at home because you don't have all the fancy equipment and 20 people that have to clean them.
Oh, they will be accused of that, yeah.
Okay. So all we had in mind is really how the recipe will work at home. So all the recipes that we did for Jerusalem and Ottolenghi, I tried in my kitchen at home. And then the second trial went to our guest kitchen, which is also been built as a home kitchen.
And I think it kind of shows our priorities, because we've never received that when we are chefs and we run restaurants, but we've always had the most fun with home recipes, never with restaurant recipes. And we always kind of go back to our maternal ancestors for answers and for new ideas, because we always feel that that's where the interesting stuff is. And when we do a book, it's always it's never really for us. It's for people who would kind of enjoy to cook it at home. So the transformation is actually quite easy with this. For the Ottolenghi Cookbook, we only need to kind of maybe change the quantity so they're slightly smaller. But we like home cooking. That's what gives us a kick.
This is also how we receive Ottolenghi the shows. It's all kind of wonderful and vegetable, but it's all like home cooking. This is what people, before we released Ottolenghi, would come in and say, can I have the recipe for this? It's so easy to make at home. And we're like, no, we can't give you. Yeah.
When are you going to open one in Washington?
We have been asked.
We are
It would be an honor for us to have one in Washington, but unfortunately, knowing the way we were, we're not as happy on a daily basis.
We always have to eat. We have to eat in one of our restaurants every day, and the flight is quite long.
Well, I must say, reading your books, I felt as if I wish I were your inner family of people that are always eating together on Friday and having fun.
We tend to do that. Yeah, we have. It is fun. And when we did the Ottolenghi Cookbook, we had these ceremonies every Friday where we would go to Sam's part of our restaurant, and we would get together a group of people, and then we would try, let's say, 4 or 5 recipes for that Friday, and then we would take notes and have like arguments, like serious arguments about the level of allspice in the lamb. That would really kind of raise the roof, because we feel very passionate about these things. That it's a quarter of a teaspoon or an eighth of a teaspoon that makes all the difference, as you know.
It does. Well, explain the bahara, the bahar, right?
Bahar is the meaning is spice, and baharat spices, and it's normally up to 10 different spices blended all together. They're normally roasted freshly and then ground, and it always have allspice, cinnamon, clove, cumin, paprika, what else?
Coriander, bell pepper.
Yeah.
But it's like Russell, in Morocco. It's like every family, every shop, every restaurant have their own version on the right spice mix. It's the most wonderful thing to have. It's a great secret. You know, they've got something to find.
Well, I know when I was in Israel last week and I went to a Druze village, and they had all these delicious stuffed vegetables, and I suddenly remembered that this flavor was exactly what I remembered from eating in East Jerusalem many, many years ago. And they said, well, it's our bahara. And I thought, oh, that's what it is. So it's a combination, but mostly allspice.
Allspice in Palestinian cooking is a key ingredient. The half of our recipe.
There's a whole region, also Lebanon and Syria,
Right.
allspice layers across their cooking.
Okay, so I have two more questions. First is, what did you tell me before? If anything could bring the Middle East together, it would be hummus. or big fights.
We're trying to really find the most, well, I guess we're at the right place.
I mean, even most places we can't fight on it, so we have this,
I always see it like that, and I think it's a good answer. And that's if this time they're going to be sitting together around the table, like seriously negotiating, they'll have a great time when they go on their lunch breaks. Because there's so much, they share so much in common. But the food itself will not do the job, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, so just tell me, I guess two questions. One is, baking soda. Is it necessary or not? And how many hours do you cook? I noticed that you cooked for 40 minutes. When I was in Jerusalem with Michael Salamano, the chef of Sahat, he said 3 hours. And everybody else said 3 hours. And I never cooked for 3 hours. So
my grandma and my mother also, I mean, I said earlier that they probably were witches. They add the baking powder, baking soda to the chickpea while the pot is still hot, and they cook the soda with the chickpeas before they add the water. Instead of heating the soda and the chickpeas together for a couple of minutes and then add the water. But this is kind of break all the skin, which is the tough bit of the chickpeas, and the end result of it is it's a greenier, much softer.
The trick, the secret to good hummus is that it's smooth.
Yeah.
I mean, they are not in Greece or Turkey, but that's not really hummus. On the right side of the equation, not on the wrong side, the hummus needs to be super smooth. So the whole trick is how to get rid of the skins, or how to get the skins to either come up and be removed or be I mean, some people went to the trouble of wrapping the chickpeas in a kitchen towel and then bashing them. And then trying to get as much skin out before you cook them. Imagine the world problems and where you know how to skin chickpeas. If we go and meet the president, we're going to tell you,
that's what you're going to the White House.
Forget all that. How do you get rid of the chickpea skin?
Well, I've heard that there's a kibbutz, and that a Palestinian told me this, that there's kibbutz hummus that has no skin. And that's what this was, the Abu Shukri, not in Jerusalem, not in Abu Ghosh, the one in near Ramallah. I was there, and he said, we are all using kibbutz hummus.
Because people think what they grow them without skin. They have no skin. Well, it's a seedless watermelon, without skin.
So what are your favorite hummus and falafel joints in Jerusalem?
Well, I haven't been for a long time, so I like Lina.
I like Shukri better than Lina.
I just like the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, it's great. They said the Abu Shukri, he's quite, he's an old man now, and this is a very funny thing, because I guess he's in his 70s, and his son is in his 50s, and still, when hummus every day for, around 9 o'clock in the morning, because it's his breakfast, lunch thing. And every day the old man needs to taste the hummus of the young man who's 50-something and approve it before it goes out. And for me, this is like, when are you going to finally be ready to
That's quite sweet.
And falafel?
I had two. One of them was in my neighborhood, which is really unknown. And the other one used to be this guy, he's a Yemeni, behind all Knesset.
Ah, yeah, I remember.
Behind where?
The old Knesset, with the Shviris, the old.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was like a hole in the wall, this Yemeni guy.
It has to be all.
Yeah. Probably did.
And it has to be Yemeni, it's not a Palestinian.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole thing about that because it's got the chickpeas, and they learned that Jews can't eat fava beans because there's an enzymatic disease.
Iraqi Jews especially.
And so that the Yemenites learned that early on to make falafel. So without
In Egypt, they only do something.
right.
We can have another discussion.
We can have a whole discussion about it. Okay, one last question. Why do you list maple syrup as one of your pantry essentials?
Because we grew up with it in Jersey. It works very well for us because it adds sweetness, but it has some character, but not too much. It's not just that heavy refined sugar. It's sweet, slightly caramely, it's a bit like palm sugar when you're cooking. It brings some sweetness, but not too much. And we do make a sauce, and we need to balance acidity or sharpness with sweetness. Maple syrup does it without feeling too kind of artificial.
Where do you get it?
Yeah, from Canada.
Well, with that, let's ask the audience. We'll leave the rest of the questions to the audience. Who wants to start? There has to be questions.
Sounds like
Gentlemen, I love your cooking. How do two creative chefs like yourself, working in the same kitchen, keep peace between yourselves?
We never had a war, so we don't need to make peace. And that's I'm not saying it just as a matter of speech. I'm saying it in real terms. Because when Sammy and I met, almost 15 years ago, and we became friends, but not in spite of everything, just because we get on really well. There's a chemistry, we were just as we are what we are. So we never had the need to make peace. Like I said, there was no bridge to gap bridge.
No fights?
we tend to argue, but we don't fight.
We kind of tease each other and do silly things, but we don't really fight. Because we're good natures. We're good boys.
Clean fire.
I had an opportunity to talk to Suzanne Goen, and she told me that when she was working on her first cookbook, she got a lot of pressure from the publisher to simplify her recipes and to cut down on the number of ingredients in order to appeal to home cooks who, I guess they were thinking they wanted to make them into another Rachel Ray, which mercifully she resisted. But I wonder if you experienced that sort of thing either from the publisher, or was it self-imposed to kind of simplify your recipes, simplify the ingredients since you're obviously talking about trying to appeal for home cooks. Which home cooks? There are many home cooks, some who don't know how to cook and some who cook very, very well. So how did you think about that when you were crafting your recipes for your books?
We mentioned it earlier that people in the bus have a lot of time to cook anymore. And now people want to have a much simpler way of cooking because of, lack of time. I think it's also it's a bit tricky because we always have in mind how easy and how hard the recipe is, and when you know that the recipe is hard, you probably should need to give it a little time. When it's easy, you just make it and eat it and be happy with it. Normally we tend to keep the quite simple, but keep the list of ingredients quite long. So it's not always the case. People would probably take sometimes that the list of ingredients in some of our recipes or many of our recipes is very long. But we've got an answer to that. We come prepared. And that is that if you build a certain amount of, like a certain larger spice cabinet that has 10-15 things, it's normally a combination of these things that you need, and then it's not too bad to gather all the rest. So we've never had pressure to simplify, because I think part of the charm and the attraction of our food is that it's very multi-layered. There's a lot of surprises, there's a lot of flavor, there's a lot going on. So I think it wouldn't be right for us, even silly publishers would want us to simplify our recipes. Sorry, and they don't put any pressure on us, it's still books.
And also, it's not so terrible if you make a recipe, one of your recipes, and you don't have an ingredient.
Yeah, and that's another thing. We're not too precious about losing one or two ingredients from our. People say, "Oh my God, what if I'm allergic to cumin?" Just don't use it. Don't put cumin in there. It's going to be absolutely fine.
But didn't you say something about lemon and garlic? If you don't like lemon and garlic, forget their book.
Yeah, that is. And also, we always say to people, try the recipe the first time. Properly, the way we write it, and then later you can actually cut it to your liking. You can skip things, you can add things. We don't mind. We actually like people kind of not taking that too seriously about it. If it's not the main ingredient, like if it's a pizza salad and you just don't like pizza, that's another issue. Like, if it's spice or herb, you don't like it or you can't eat it.
I've made the chicken with arak and clementines a couple of times, and I always add onion. I just
See?
I think it needs it, yeah.
It's fine.
And I substitute cane syrup for the brown sugar. Is that okay?
Yeah. Well done.
Hi, thank you so much for your absolutely delicious cookbook, which I had the pleasure of reviewing, which meant I got to make about 20 different recipes from it. But I write dessert cookbooks, and I want to know from each of you, what was your favorite dessert growing up in Jerusalem?
For me, it's something which is basically, it's not even a dessert, it's a warm drink that was, it's kind of a milk pudding. It doesn't sound so appetizing, but it's a winter thing. It's milk that's thickened richly with a rice of it's with a root of orchid. So they have orchid. And now they use cornstarch to thicken it. And it's got sweet spices and nuts and coconut.
Do you have it in any of the books?
We have a version of it in Jerusalem, yes.
Okay.
Mine, I have two actually. One is the tabak, which is a phyllo with the cheese, goat cheese and pistachio with a rose water syrup. The other one is the fenugreek cake. We have it in Jerusalem. This cake, you can't buy it. It's a homemade.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, any place in the U.S., so it looked interesting to me. I made the semolina cake and I made the cigars.
Oh yeah.
What I find amazing about your book is every recipe I make, my food and my desserts look exactly like your photographs.
You're good.
I'm a chef, but people have told me they've had the same experience, so bravo, because sometimes you make recipes and cookbooks and what you make does not look like
No, maybe we should take a pancake with us. You can have one with us. Thank you.
Paul was a pro, that's not fair. I have a question about how you communicate. Do you, when you write the recipes, in what language do you write, when you speak to each other, in what language do you speak, and has there ever been a language barrier between you and your work?
We used to we speak Hebrew to each other most of the time. If there's an English speaker in the room and they walk out and carry on speaking English, kind of, we spoke both, we speak both languages, it just depends how we start the sentence. And when we work on recipes, it's always in English, because that's the technical jargon. We never use Hebrew. We never use Hebrew when it comes to work or cooking. It's just something we use.
Sometimes we take recipes like from Arabic or Hebrew, and we work on them.
Yeah, but English is the language we communicate with professionally. And the way it works normally with the recipes is that there isn't really one way, because Sammy might find an old recipe in an old Arabic book, and I might be traveling and bring something, and then we just test it. There isn't kind of a method or a way for us to communicate. We just send each other ideas and try them, and then see if the other side likes it or not. But normally it's quite fluid, and we have the best place to test our recipes. That's on our customers in our restaurants. So we normally know what's popular and what works.
Thank you so much for coming. I love your cookbooks and all of your recipes. As a home cook, I was wondering what you guys think are the most important tools, especially in a small kitchen, to have.
Two, yeah. Lemon squeezer.
Thank you. Where did you decide to go to dinner tonight?
Yeah. Joan has been talking about it for 4 months. And today, she decided about 4 times. Final decision. We still don't know where we're going. There's about 5 options.
Will you share
Any suggestions?
Well, will you share the options?
Don't get any more.
Will you share the options?
What?
Which restaurants are the 5 options?
What are the options?
Oh, man. Well, I call, you want to know. We wanted something weird. And I called Tom Sietzema, and he suggested, actually, I don't have my cell phone, but Yotam said something crazy, and so.
Something really delicious, but not too fancy.
Right, you know, and also that I would like to go. So I was thinking about a lot of different restaurants. So I asked Tom, he said, well, Del Campo is right around the corner, Latin American. He also suggested Del Caya.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a good one because maybe it would be a little bit quieter. Let me think, what was the French?
There was a Roseanne.
Oh, right, Roseanne does want us to go to Oyonel. We were excited to take you for lunch. And I mean, there are restaurants that I like, but I figured maybe you wouldn't want Italian La Viviana because I like Big Stefanelli.
Maybe we should have Mexican.
But we'll see a little bit lower. It's hard.
We'll let you know.
We'll let you know.
Guys, thanks for coming. You both are great. Another hummus question, if I can. The recipe in cleansing is slightly different in the process versus that of Jerusalem. I'm wondering which one.
Mine is better. What is the best recipe for the hummus one in Kenya, one in Jerusalem?
Okay.
And then what did you say?
Mine is better. Yeah.
I guess which one offers a dozen and vice versa.
Well, John said they said that you should do the chickpeas for 3 hours.
Well,
No. And then we said 40 minutes. And now I'm going to say something. There's a million ways to cook hummus, and there's I would say that I would decide with Sammy for a change, but just say that we have improved our method from that to Jerusalem. But both work and get this sort of good result.
This is what I haven't understood, which people were asking me was, when you cook chickpeas, if you cook them a long time, the flavors in the chickpea, that doesn't make sense to me. Because if you cook them in water, you still have flavor from the water.
Yeah.
So why do you cook it forever? I just didn't get it.
Well, I guess the whole idea is...
Because your mother did.
No, make it a... Yeah, well, that's a good reason. But make it very, very smooth. I mean, the longer you cook it, the softer it's going to be.
And also, I think it's definitely arguing with people that have been doing almost for the last, I don't know, 20 years, that there is another way of doing it. If they do it this way, this is the way it should be. Why? That's another war.
It's another war. Okay. All right, one last question.
Hi. Thank you all so much for being here. One of the things I love, especially about Jerusalem, is you don't know where one culture stops and the other one starts necessarily. The blending is really beautiful. My question is, I'm wondering what's up next? What are you working on? What's on the horizon? What are you cooking in your kitchens that you're trying out now?
We're always doing new things, and we're always trying new recipes. That's what we do. Try recipes more or less all the time. We're thinking of opening another restaurant in the next couple of years. It's not in Washington, it will probably be in London. And but this is the plan for the next couple of years. And setting up a restaurant is a huge undertaking, so that would probably keep us very busy. I'm doing another vegetarian cookbook that is coming out this time next year. And these are the two main projects that are going to keep us busy for the next. We always do things. This book tour is kind of something that just takes away all some 10 days, and then there's something else. We always kept very busy, so there's no shortage.
Well, there's a reason for you to come back to 6 and 9. Thank you so much.